Hello and welcome to Quays News. I'm Harriet Muckle.
And I'm Nick Pinnington. Here's what's coming up on the programme today. We'll be bringing you all the build-up to the upcoming coronation.
Children are back into books with a local author setting a new reading challenge.
And Liverpool gets ready to host Eurovision on behalf of Ukraine. Now, preparations are well underway for King Charles's coronation this Saturday. Here to tell us more is our royal expert, Johnny Bentley. Johnny.
Hiya.
Now, we've been hearing about a security issue. What's been going on there?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, Nick, with big events like this, you always expect a few things to go a bit rough around the edges from time to time. And yesterday there was a security breach. So on Tuesday evening there was shotgun cartridges found around the Buckingham Palace areas, and the police had to intervene. At 7 p.m. they arrested a man who was also seen carrying a knife. But after that, they carried out a planned explosion that was to nullify the situation, to make sure they were all going to be prepared for anything that goes on in the upcoming days and on the event, on the day itself, on Saturday potentially. And there's good confidence that they are well prepared, well planned for what's going to happen. So we're all good to go for Saturday.
Thank goodness for that. We don't want
absolutely.
anything ruining Saturday,
No.
do we? Now, what about Camilla becoming the Queen?
Yeah, so Queen Consort Camilla is set to become Queen Camilla from Saturday onwards. Now, this was the wishes of the late Elizabeth II. She felt that this was only right. Now, I know we all know that the way Camilla came into the family had some controversy, but the hope is that people will get behind this decision, and, you know, she's very happy and delighted with it, we're led to hear, and hopefully we can move forward with this, with King Charles and Queen Camilla from Saturday the 6th onwards.
And what can you tell us about what's actually happening on the day itself?
Yeah, so the public events and areas in London are going to be open. So those that are camping out there, our very own Kieran Bradley's going to be there, of course. So people like him and everyone else will be able to see things from 6:30 a.m. onwards, and then the television coverage starts at 7:30. Things start to get going really, and at 11 a.m. we have the coronation itself taking place. At 1 p.m. just after that, fans should be excited and ready to see the new king on the balcony, and they should be ready to see the salute. And then 1 hour later, roughly about 2:15, we should see the aircraft flying over to sort of commemorate and finalise those saluting. And of course, after that, the street parties are going to be wild, aren't they? It's not just going to be there at the scene, but across England, you're going to have so many people cheering this monumental moment. It's probably the biggest thing. All things monarchy is probably the biggest in the 21st century, I think, Nick.
Thank you very much.
It's going to be fantastic, Johnny. So what do you guys think? Get involved in the discussion. Head to @QuaysNews on Twitter using the hashtag #YourViewsQuaysNews.
Now, here's Harriet Wall with our top stories. Harriet?
Thank you. Yes, 120 people have died in floods and landslides in the northern and western provinces of Rwanda. Casualties are expected to increase as floodwaters continue to rise, but aid has been provided to those who have lost their homes in the floods. 8 school children and 1 teacher have died in the school shooting in Serbia. The event took place in Belgrade at 8:40 local time this morning, and a 14-year-old student has been arrested after calling the police following the incident. And Russia has accused Ukraine of launching an assassination attempt on President Putin. This was after 2 drones were shot down over the Kremlin last night, but Ukraine denies these allegations. That's been your breaking news. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Harriet. Now, gone are the days of children being stuck to iPads. It's back to Horrid Henry and Harry Potter. Now, I went to meet with a local author who set a reading challenge to get even more children into reading. It may seem as though children reading books is a sight we see less and less as technology takes over our daily lives. But that may not be the case for much longer. A new report has revealed how the number of books read by children in the UK and Ireland has increased by 25% over the last 2 years. The perfect book for your 10-year-old child. Social media trends such as Book Talk on TikTok have played a key role in getting more children into reading, but some believe there's still a long way to go.
I think it's great that more children are reading, but I do still think more can be done. As an English teacher, obviously I encourage my learners to read. You know, it's so important, and it begins you know, in the classroom, at the home, they work together. Because, you know, reading is a life skill.
In a statement, the National Literacy Trust said it is clear that much more must be done to support children and young people with the lowest levels of reading enjoyment. Children's author Claire has created a fun challenge for local children to get reading more books.
What I was trying to do was encourage the people where I live to read, to take part in the reading challenge and to kind of get to know me a little bit as well. So last weekend I packaged up 15 books with my details on, and I set out at 7 o'clock in the morning on my bike with a bag full of books and hid them around Urmston, and posted on the Facebook group what I'd done and just waited for people to find them. And I had some lovely messages from people telling me that they'd found the book, their daughter was really excited that they found them on the swing, they've already read it 4 or 5 times. I wanted to find a way to get children involved, and I love reading, and you know what, I love a little bit of a competition, a little bit of a tick list. So I decided to set up this reading challenge where children can sign up. It's free to sign up, and you read 6 books over April and May, and at the end of it you can send me, fill in the form to tell me that you've done it.
The hope is to get even more youngsters into reading. Harriet Muckle, Quays News.
Well, what a lovely idea, Harriet. Do you know anyone getting involved?
I'm going to take my nephew down this weekend to see if he can find a book in the park. I used to love reading as a child. I mean, I was obsessed with Harry Potter, but I mean, who wasn't?
It's a good shout, yeah. Well, this year's Eurovision Song Contest will begin in Liverpool next week. Hopefully it won't be another nil point for England. Amy Tobias went down to see the host city to see how things are shaping up.
Ahead of the opening ceremony and fan village at Pier Head, the city was relatively quiet, but anticipation was high. There were plenty of tourists and locals alike gathering to observe Liverpool's cultural and musical heritage, including the iconic Beatles. I spoke to some of the Eurovision volunteers about their roles promoting the cultural celebration around the city.
So I'm one of the arts volunteers, so what I do is I walk around different arts exhibitions and give people more insight into the piece, show people where to go, where to find the next one, that kind of thing. So at the moment I'm on the Songbird Trail. We've got 12 songbirds around the city placed in all different places, each one representing a different region of Ukraine with a different pattern that represents each region. So it's really interesting and people are engaging a lot.
Ukraine were last year's winners, but due to the ongoing conflict in the country, second place UK offered to host the event on their behalf. The volunteers told me about how Liverpool is paying homage to Ukraine and celebrating the contest's theme, United by Music.
From my experience of walking around today, I've noticed there's an interest in what's coming up, and I think it's only early days yet. Obviously the songbirds are the first sort of tangible evidence of what's going on. But I think as the weeks progress towards the countdown for the Eurovision, I think you're going to find a lot of cultural crossovers.
I am living here around here and I'm from Ukraine. It's my first time in such investigation, big parade, so I'm just looking for everything, especially to see maybe familiar faces, language, and I'm just excited to see everything related with Ukraine.
Ukraine have been at the heart and centre of everything that Eurovision has sort of brought to Liverpool. So in a way, as much as we're hosting, it really does feel like we're hosting on behalf of Ukraine.
I'm here now at the main arena, which will host the 37 competing countries in 9 different shows, including the preview shows, the semi-finals on the 9th and 11th of May, and the grand final on Saturday the 13th.
And now to sport. Manchester City face West Ham tonight in a bid to take back the top spot in the Premier League. At the Etihad for us today, sports correspondent Daniela Chalice.
An all-important game tonight for Manchester City as they take on West Ham in an attempt to secure that Premier League top spot here at the Etihad. The Sky Blues currently sit second on the table, just 2 points below Arsenal, who won against Chelsea last night. On watching the Arsenal vs Chelsea game, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola said, "I don't control the results of other teams. I'm focused on what we do against West Ham. They have not had the season they expected, but that does not mean the quality is not there." It has been 14 head-to-head games since West Ham took a victory against Man City in September 2015. But could tonight be their night, or will we see City reach the top? We'll have to see. Kick-off tonight at 8 p.m.
And from one side of Manchester to the other, here's Arthur with the United news.
Manchester United's takeover saga has now entered its 7th month since the Glazers first put the club up for sale back in November 2022. Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani are currently leading the race, but no deal has been finalised as of yet. Sir Jim Ratcliffe claims that if his takeover of the club was to be successful, he would want complete and immediate control over all transfers at the club. Sheikh Jassim also remains in the hunt to acquire the club, and it appears that the Qatari billionaire has taken a stunning U-turn after reports emerged last week of him apparently not wanting to take over the club anymore due to the fact that he wants complete control. Ratcliffe is still leading the race, however he wants a 69% stake of the club. The Qatari billionaire Sheikh Jassim wants a 100% takeover of the club.
And both sides will be playing each other in the FA Cup final. What do you reckon the score's going to be, Harriet?
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking City will probably get a win, but you never know. United against City, it's one of those. It's always 50-50.
Derby Day. Manchester's Flower Festival will be brightening up the city from the 26th of May until the 29th. But what's really behind a flower? Our reporter, Paige Summers, went to find out more.
We associate them with the good, the bad and the ugly. We show love with them, mourn deaths of loved ones, celebrate life events, apologise for mistakes with them, make medicine out of them, put them into our perfumes. We paint them. Shakespeare and Wordsworth wrote poetry about them. We pin one over our hearts to honour our armed forces once every year. Sometimes we even put them into our food. And Dorothy and her friends loved trawling through those poppy fields to get to the Emerald City, didn't they? Or did they? Spoiler alert, the Wicked Witch of the West had used opium to put Dorothy to sleep. Opium use in the US peaked in the late 19th century, just around the same time that L. Frank Baum wrote The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. 5 years before the author's death, the US passed legislation to control the distribution of opium. We don't know for sure, but concerns over opium may have inspired the Scarlet Field. Flowers, they're everywhere, but do we really know what we're saying when it comes to them, or do they speak for themselves? The language of flowers, where did that come from? Manchester Flower Festival is coming up at the end of this month. I needed answers before the city is covered in them.
Represent everything. They say so much. We use flowers for sympathy, weddings, christenings. They say everything. Something like a flower, you don't actually need to say anything. It says it all. We have obviously had COVID. Every other bouquet to begin with was sympathy flowers, which lilies are very popular, but then also roses, lisianthus. Some people quite like to ask for happy flowers, like vibrant colours for sympathy. If somebody asks for red and white flowers, we would try and sway them against that, because that's like the old-fashioned blood and bandages. Sometimes it can be a little bit, oh no, you can't do that. There's certain flowers and certain colours that people have their own personal thoughts over that they can't use. If somebody comes in, and it does happen, people come in and ask for black flowers or black roses, we would spray a red rose black.
The closest you can get to a true black rose is a blackcurrant coloured baccara. Weeds are said to be bad for us, but dandelions are actually one of the best things to improve heart health. Lilies are apparently a sign of jealousy if you give them to another person. If you don't think there's a flower out there that matches your personality, you haven't looked hard enough.
I definitely think I'm a sunflower, Nick. Thanks to you all for joining us. That's all from Quays News tonight.
Join us again next week. Thank you. Have a lovely evening.